Parker and Juliet Hume were two adolescent killers who shocked New Zealand in 1954 when they murdered Honora Reaper, Pauline's mother. According to court documents, Pauline Parker and Juliet Hume would go for a walk with Honora and then beat the woman to death with a piece of brick swung inside a sock. Following the murder, the two adolescent killers returned to the tea room where the three had had lunch earlier and informed the owners that Honora had fallen and cut her face. It has been 69 years since two distraught, bloody teenage girls yelled for help from a wooded area in Christchurch's Victoria Park. The couple who ran the tea kiosk in the park recognized them. They had just left the tea rooms after eating with an older lady. When one of the girls cried out, "Please help us, Mummy is hurt and covered in blood," Agnes Ritchie took them inside the kiosk while her husband Kenneth, believing the woman had fallen, went down the path they had just come from to see if there was anything he could do. A few minutes later, about 130 meters down the path, he discovered Honora's battered body. She was 45. Her injuries indicated that this was not an accident. When the police arrived, they found a half brick and a bloodied stocking thrown beneath nearby trees. And so began the investigation into a case that has gone down in New Zealand's criminal history as one of the most intriguing and is still a source of fascination all these years later. The Parker-Hulme murder shocked the country because the perpetrators, Pauline Parker and Juliet Hume, were teenagers, and the victim was Pauline's mother. This kind of thing did not happen in New Zealand in June 1954. The city of Christchurch is reeling, a commenter wrote. Teenage girls do not kill their mothers. Honora's daughter, Pauline Parker, 16, was the first to be arrested and questioned. At the time, both mother and daughter used the surname Riper, but when it was discovered that Honora was not married to her partner, Herbert Riper, the courts used the legal surname Parker for both the victim and the accused. A search of her home turned up diaries in which Pauline discussed the murder she and Juliet, 15, planned to commit. The day of the happy event, the entry for June the 22nd, the day Honora died, was titled. Juliet was also arrested and charged with murder. The ensuing trial was closely watched by all New Zealanders. When the two girls met at Christchurch Girls High School 2.5 years ago, they became fast friends. Their friendship seemed unlikely at first because they came from such contrasting backgrounds. Juliet, who was born in the United Kingdom, moved to Christchurch with her father. Psychiatrist Dr. Henry Hume was appointed rector of Canterbury University. She lived in a large house with her family. Meanwhile, Pauline's inner-city working-class home doubled as a boarding house run by her mother, Honora, while her father worked in a fish shop. However, class did not matter to the girls, who were extremely intelligent and bonded over their shared love of books and health issues. As a child, Pauline Parker had suffered from osteomyelitis, a painful bone infection. Juliet had tuberculosis and had been sent from the UK to the Bahamas and South Africa to recover in warmer weather. Both had vivid imaginations and created a fantasy world they wrote about and acted out. They adopted new names. Pauline became Gina, Juliet became Deborah, and they were enthralled by a religion they invented in which they worshipped saints based on celebrities like opera singer Mario Lanza. Their obsession with this fantasy world eventually became so intense that their parents met to discuss how to break their friendship. A doctor they saw said he thought the girls were having an intimate relationship, which Juliet later denied. Then came the chance to separate the two when Henry Hume discovered that his wife Hilda had been having an affair, and they decided to divorce. He intended to relocate to South Africa with Juliet and Jonathan, Juliet's brother. Pauline Parker wanted to accompany them, but was convinced her mother would not allow it, so a plan was devised to remove the impediment that would undoubtedly prevent the two girls from being together. Honra. Pauline's diary was used as evidence at the trial in August 1954 that her mother's death was planned. She had written about their plan to murder Honra and cover it up as an accident. Juliet is worried but does not disagree violently, she said. On June the 19th, she wrote about the carefully worked out plan, adding that they were thrilled by the idea. Naturally, we feel a trifle nervous, but the pleasure of anticipation is great. This was followed on June the 21st by, we decided to use a rock in a stocking rather than a sandbag. We talked about the moiter. I feel keyed up as if I were planning a surprise party. Honra died the next day after receiving over 20 blows to the head. Both girls eventually confessed fully, admitting to battering Honra with a brick. Their lawyers attempted to argue that they were guilty due to insanity and had no idea what they were doing was wrong. Defense psychiatrists claimed the pair were delusional due to homosexuality. The trial was a sensational affair because of claims like these. The prosecution called the pair dirty-minded girls, whilst the defense claimed they were insane. They were both found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Pauline in Christchurch and Juliet in Auckland. Juliet returned to England after being released from prison and worked a variety of jobs. She also joined the Mormon Church and spent some time in America. The public had no idea what happened to Juliet until the 1994 release of Sir Peter Jackson's film Heavenly Creatures, which inspired Kiwi journalist Lynn Ferguson to track her down. Lynn checked the birth dates of writers until she found a match with a Scottish-based writer named Anne Perry. After learning she had changed her name and became a novelist, not only did Anne turn out to be Juliet Hume, but she was also a very successful crime novelist with over 20 million copies of her 100-plus novels in print. The fact that a teenage murderer was now making a living by writing about murder became a story around the world. Anne has spoken to journalists, documentary filmmakers, and a biographer about her past, claiming that Pauline would have taken her life if she did not go along with the plan. She also felt she owed Pauline, who had written to her daily while in a sanatorium for 3 months due to tuberculosis. The letters were a lifeline, and I felt I owed her. She claimed to have made peace with what she had done. Yes, a long time ago. Admit your error, express your regret, and then move on. Pauline's whereabouts remained unknown for another 2 years until journalist Chris Cook discovered her in the UK. She lived alone in a quiet village in Kent, teaching children to ride horses. Hilary Nathan became her new name. Hilary refused to discuss her past, but her older sister Wendy revealed that she was deeply religious and lived a solitary life. She has no contact with the outside world, she told the New Zealand Kind Woman's Weekly. She is a devout Roman Catholic who spends her time in prayer. She does not have a TV or a radio, so she would not have heard or cared what Anne Perry had to say. Wendy revealed that Hillary told her their mother's death was an out-of-control situation. She described it as having grown out of all proportion. She was deeply sorry after it happened. It took about 5 years for her to realize what she had done. Hillary later relocated to Scotland, settling in the isolated Orkney Islands. She appears to have had no contact with Anne, who now spends much of her time in Los Angeles working on getting some of her books adapted to film. She later collaborated on a book with biographer Joanne Drayton. The book, The Search for Anne Perry, is available on Amazon. What these two girls did was absolutely horrific. However, I find it sort of sad that these two were willing to make such a sacrifice and cause such a tragedy in their family just to remain friends and then never speak again after they were arrested. Do you believe that 5 years was enough to rehabilitate these girls? Do you think they're truly sorry? Tell me what you think in the comments. I will see you in the next one.